Hey, and welcome back to AP GoPo One Republic to Americas. This is Shep Chat 102. When we left off yesterday, we were talking about different values that all Americans share and kind of where we get those ideas from, and the political socialization, that you get those ideas primarily from your parents, your education, your economic setting in life. Today, we're going to talk about different types of government and maybe what type of government is the best. So, totalitarian controls all political and social aspects of life. In this case, you can think of like Hitler during World War II in Nazi Germany, Kim Jong Un from North Korea. Those are going to be people that control every part of your life. I recently saw something on Facebook, which means it's 100% true, and that was that all the men in North Korea had to get the same haircut as Kim Jong Un. I also recently saw a picture of a bunch of men in North Korea like staring up at that big screen as they were talking about them blasting off their nuclear weapon, and they did not all have that haircut. The point is that if Kim Jong Un wants to tell all the men in North Korea that they have to have that specific haircut, then all the men in North Korea kind of have to have that specific haircut. If Adolf Hitler told all the people in Nazi Germany, you all have to have the Hitler stash, then all the men in Nazi Germany would have had to walk around with that Hitler stash. Totalitarian leaders tell you every part of your life. In contrast, another strong leadership is authoritarian. But in this case, it's the political control is centralized. Social and economic institutions, they're separate. They're controlled by different groups, different organizations. China is set up somewhat similar to this, where the political control is centralized with one group, and then social and economic ideals are set up by somebody else. Then we have the aristocracy. Aristocracy legit means rule by the best. So the wealthy, the educated, the upper class of society, those are the people going to be doing the decision making. In Greece, they called this the oligarchy, the same as aristocracy, but in this case, the leaders are self-serving. A lot of times in aristocracies, they're self-serving as well, but in oligarchy, it's just part of the definition. Now, getting back to what Winston Churchill said is the best of all the types of government because, well, all the other ones suck. It's not that democracy is so great, it's that the other ones are bad, and that is democracy where political authority is vested in the people. You have direct democracy and you have representative democracy, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the differences between those two. And then the last form of government is actually an absence of government, and that's anarchy, and that's where there's total lack of control from any specific institution or organization. If you think about what Hobbes said, those political philosophers back then, this is when you are going to get those total moments of chaos, when nobody's willing to do anything. Locke says when you get anarchy, people will step up and they will be willing to get rid of some of those natural rights to create that social contract. So the founding brothers had some choices. They knew that they didn't want a king. We just gotten rid of King George III, so we don't want anybody like that back. We think power to the people. That'd be pretty cool. They had used it in Athens in the past and had some success with it, where people voted directly, discussed directly, debated directly each individual issue. And even in America today, we have some of these things that we still do. Initiatives. This is where voters propose laws. You want to propose a law? Start an initiative. A referendum. The legislator refers the issue to a vote. So it comes on the ballot and the people vote directly on it. A lot of times we think about schools. Hint, hint, there might be a referendum coming up that says we need a soccer complex and we need a football complex. Those are referendums. That goes to the people to vote directly on it. We also see this with legalization of marijuana. And before the Supreme Court made a final decision on gay marriage, there were a lot of referendums in regards to that. We also have recalls. This is a procedure that allows citizens to dismiss an elected official. Just because they're recalled doesn't mean that they're dismissed, though. A recall election is held. You probably all remember when Governor Scott Walker was recalled a few years ago. He ran for election. His new budget wasn't liked, especially by a lot of public workers. And so he had over 900,000 people sign a petition to have him recalled, where he had to have another election. He was not dismissed from office, though, because he won that re-election against Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett. So even though he was recalled, he got to stay in office. But the problem with direct democracy is it doesn't really work. There's a couple of reasons for it, at least for right now. One, who has time for that? I don't have time to be running down to the village hall and voting on every single issue, or every time they need a student stop sign, or they want to raise the taxes, or they want to say somebody can have a liquor license. I don't have time for that. Madison comes up with this idea of the mob mentality. You're just going to get the loudest, angriest people getting to make all the decisions all the time. That's not best either. In some ways, though, we've gotten a little bit closer back into direct democracy. The internet has made it easier. Some states allow for online voting. In many cases now, there's more of that direct communication with our leadership. If you think about it, you tweet to Donald Trump will retweet it. He tweets, he retweets. It's that direct communication brought about by this online. Founding brothers / geniuses in this case, so they're like, direct democracy, it might not work, but democracy is good. Let's keep that. What can we do? So they get this republic, which is a form of government where the power rests with the people. But in this case, the representatives are going to be elected by the people, and then those representatives are the ones that make and enforce laws. Kinda, sorta, but kinda, sorta. Because especially in the beginning, before the Constitution is amended to change the way senators were elected, the lower house actually voted on the senators. So the people didn't have a say as far as electing senators or their president. And technically, we still don't have too much of a say with the president because the Electoral College is the one that elects the president. There's lots of pros and cons issues with that. We will get into that more when we do elections. But specifically for our purposes, more than any other type of government, democracy gives the power to the people. You don't like your government? Well, that's your problem. You are the government. All right, what are some democratic principles? One is universal suffrage. Universal suffrage means all people get to vote. Pretty important principle. It only took 30 years shy of 200 years for the United States to be able to figure that out, though. It's not until the 1960s when all people under the age of, or all African Americans and all people 18 and under get to vote, or 18 and over get to vote, my bad. All right, majority rule, minority rights. The majority, more than 50%, get to make the decisions, but they have to protect the rights of minority. This is done through free elections. So even though the majority of people feel this way, they still get that voice of the minority, and that influences the decisions protecting the minority rights. And then we want that limited government. We talked about that with Locke, that Locke says, we'll give up some rights, but I'm not giving up all of them. And James Madison says in one of the Federalist Papers that if men were angels, no government would be necessary. Where this idea comes from is there's people that are going to get power, and they're going to want more power, and they're going to want more power, and they're going to want more power. We need to have a protection against those power-hungry people. That's where we're going to get something like the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment. So who rules in America? There are three major ideas of who rules: majoritarianism, elitism, and pluralism. Majoritarianism says that the majority of the people in the United States get the say. The problem with this is that the majority rarely speak up. The people in the middle are rarely the ones having the say. Elitism, ruled by a few small people who use their power to seek further self-interest. That's going to be like the aristocracy type ideas. Do we have that a little bit? Sure. The majority of people that sit in Congress aren't a good reflection of the common average American citizen. This reminds me of like the Brotherhood and the Skull and Bones, and you have to belong to secret organizations to be president. Pretty sure Donald Trump kind of washes all of that away, but there is some people that view our country as run by elitism. The third view is pluralism. This is that politics is conflict among different interest groups. So the NRA has to work with anti-gun lobbying, and evangelical Christians have to work with people that are atheists. We have to bargain and compromise here in the United States. Nobody's always going to get their way. Your way is your political ideology. This is a comprehensive set of beliefs about the way that people and government think. Your political ideology is set by your schooling, your parents. It's how you view what government should look like. There's 4 ideologies that your textbook talks about. The first one is socialism. This is on the far left, so this is left of most liberals even. And that is active government control of major economic sectors, economic equality. So I have what you have, and you have what I have, and we all have the same. Liberalism, a little bit more to the right, but still left of center, believes in positive government action in the economy and economic security. So if you're struggling, we'll help you out. Conservatism, positive government action to support capitalism. Your business is struggling, we'll help you out because then you will create jobs. Calls for economic liberty, morality, and social order. You think evangelical Christians more control over your personal life than your economic life. And then